All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the early life of Ted Kaczynski,
Okay.
better known as the Unabomber.
Right.
And our source material for this deep dive is going to be excerpts from the Wondery podcast American Scandal.
Okay.
Specifically, the episode titled Atomic Pearl.
All right.
Now, you might already know that Kaczynski was a mathematical prodigy, a Harvard graduate who ultimately became a domestic terrorist, waging war against technology and industrial society.
Right.
What we're going to do today is peel back the layers and try to understand the events and experiences that shaped him, leading him down this dark path.
It's fast. We're not just looking at a criminal case here.
Right.
We're looking at a life.
Absolutely.
And a complex one at that.
Yeah.
Kaczynski's story really forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions about the nature of intelligence, the potential for darkness, and the role of society in shaping both good and evil.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Ted Kaczynski grew up in Evergreen Park, Illinois. He was a gifted child.
Yeah.
But he was also very isolated.
Right.
Often struggling to connect with his peers.
I see.
He skipped 2 grades.
Wow.
Which probably added to his sense of being different.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are these early hints of his fascination with science.
Okay.
But also with destruction.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Atomic Pearl incident is a great example of that.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about a high schooler who builds a firecracker.
Right.
So powerful that it leaves a crater in the ground.
Yeah.
Apparently, this was an attempt to impress a girl he had a crush on.
Oh, wow.
It sort of worked. She was intrigued.
Okay.
But it also reveals this early fascination with creating things that cause chaos.
Yeah, it's like he was already testing the boundaries, exploring the power of knowledge, but in a way that was, well, maybe a little unsettling, right?
Exactly. And then we have the incident where he teaches a classmate how to make a bomb.
In exchange for social acceptance.
Right.
Even at that young age, he's using his intelligence as a tool for manipulation.
It's like
trying to force connection in ways that most of us wouldn't even consider.
Yeah, that's a pattern that seems to repeat itself throughout his life, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
This need to control, to exert his will on the world around him.
Right.
Okay, so from there, Kaczynski ends up at Harvard. This prestigious institution filled with brilliant minds.
Yeah.
You'd think he'd finally find a place where he belonged.
Right.
But that wasn't the case at all.
No. Harvard, it seems, actually intensified his feelings of alienation.
Really?
He clashed with authority figures like his band teacher and even his own father.
Wow.
He felt increasingly out of place among his wealthy peers.
I see.
And despite his academic achievements, there's a sense that he was deeply unhappy.
Oh, wow.
Struggling to find his place in this supposedly elite environment.
And then there's the whole Dr. Murray experiment,
right,
which is just, wow.
Yeah.
This was a controversial psychological study that Kaczynski participated in while at Harvard.
Yeah.
Imagine being subjected to intense verbal confrontations. And psychological manipulation, all in the name of science.
And this is where the ethical considerations become really important.
Right.
While the study aimed to explore human behavior under stress, the methods employed were, to put it mildly, questionable.
Yeah.
Dr. Murray used a variety of techniques designed to provoke emotional responses to push participants to their breaking point.
I can't help but wonder how much that experience contributed to Kaczynski's growing resentment towards institutions and authority figures. I mean, he was already struggling.
Yeah.
And then to be treated like a lab rat in this way, it had to have an impact.
It's impossible to say for sure.
Right.
But it certainly seems like a turning point.
Yeah.
This is where his disillusionment with academia and perhaps with society in general starts to take root.
And that disillusionment only grows when he moves on to the University of Michigan.
Right.
He witnesses the Vietnam War protests at Berkeley, which seems to solidify his belief that political solutions are useless.
Yeah.
That technology is the real enemy.
Right. And this is where we see the seeds of his radical ideology beginning to sprout. He's not just questioning authority anymore.
Right.
He's rejecting the very foundations of modern society.
Wow.
He sees technology as a force for dehumanization.
I see.
As the root of all evil.
So we have this brilliant mind.
Yes.
deeply alienated, searching for meaning and control in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and hostile.
Right.
And then he reaches a breaking point.
Yeah.
He abruptly resigns from his position at Berkeley.
Wow.
And retreats to the wilderness of Montana. You might think this is a search for peace.
Yeah.
A return to nature.
Right.
But in Kaczynski's case, it's anything but.
This is where things take a truly dark turn. Kaczynski's retreat into the wilderness isn't a rejection of violence.
Oh, wow.
It's a preparation for it.
Really?
He's not seeking peace. He's seeking vengeance.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
We've seen these glimpses of a troubled mind, this growing anger and resentment.
Right.
But how does this isolated, disillusioned academic transform into the Unabomber, a terrorist waging war on technology?
Right. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Oh.
And to really understand it, you have to look at the Montana wilderness, not just as a physical space, but as a psychological one for Kaczynski, removed from the constraints of society, surrounded by the raw power of nature. His anger and resentment festered and transformed into this radical ideology that demonized technology and modern society as the root of all evil.
So it's almost like the wilderness becomes this echo chamber for his extreme beliefs.
Exactly.
He's cut off from any moderating influences, any alternative viewpoints. And he's stewing in his own twisted logic, right?
Exactly. And that's when the bombs start.
Wow.
The first one, in 1978, targeted a professor at Northwestern University.
Jeez.
It was just the beginning of a terrifying campaign that would span nearly 2 decades.
And it's chilling how his targets become increasingly symbolic. It's not just individuals anymore. It's airlines representing the interconnectedness of modern society, universities, as these supposed bastions of intellectualism that he's come to despise. He's waging war against the very systems he believes are destroying humanity.
And remember, this is all happening before the internet.
Oh, wow.
Before widespread surveillance.
Right.
Kaczynski is operating in the shadows, using his knowledge to craft these sophisticated bombs, leaving very few clues.
Jeez.
It creates this atmosphere of fear and paranoia, this sense of an invisible enemy striking at random. The American Scandal podcast really captures that sense of dread that gripped the country.
People were afraid to open packages, travel on planes, even attend classes. It's incredible how one person, operating from this remote cabin, managed to disrupt everyday life for millions.
It really is.
And the pressure on law enforcement must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. They were dealing with a ghost.
Wow.
A criminal mastermind. Who seemed to vanish into thin air.
I see.
The investigation spanned decades.
Jeez.
Consumed countless resources.
Wow.
And became an obsession for many involved. It seemed like they were always one step behind, always reacting to his moves. Instead of anticipating them.
And then, in a twist of fate, it's his own brother, David Kaczynski, who recognizes the writing style.
Oh, wow.
In that infamous manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future. Can you imagine that moment? Realizing that your own flesh and blood is responsible for such horrific acts.
It's a truly heartbreaking situation. And it adds another layer of complexity to this story. The Kaczynski family is suddenly forced to make an impossible choice.
I see.
Loyalty to their brother versus the safety of others. Ultimately, they choose to cooperate with the FBI, leading to Kaczynski's arrest in 1996.
And then comes the trial.
Yeah.
And the inevitable debate about his sanity.
Right.
Was he truly a madman or a cold, calculating terrorist?
Yeah.
Did his intelligence somehow contribute to his descent into violence? Or was there something fundamentally broken within him?
Right.
It seems like even now, all these years later, there's no easy answer.
That's the thing about Kaczynski's story. It defies easy categorization. It challenges us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature, to grapple with the potential for violence, even in the most brilliant minds. Mental illness is a complex issue. And disentangling it from criminal behavior, especially in a case as extreme as this, is incredibly challenging.
I think what's so fascinating is that even with all the evidence, all the analysis, there's still this lingering question. Was there anything that could have been done differently? Were there missed opportunities to intervene, to redirect his brilliance towards something more positive.
It's certainly tempting to play the what-if game, isn't it?
Right.
What if he'd found a more supportive environment at Harvard?
Yeah.
What if he'd never participated in Dr. Murray's experiment?
Right.
It's impossible to know, for sure.
Yeah.
But I do think Kaczynski's story underscores the importance of connection and empathy,
Right.
particularly for those who might be struggling to fit in.
So it's not just about nurturing intelligence.
Right.
It's about nurturing the whole person.
Exactly.
See.
Creating environments where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued,
Yeah.
regardless of their intellect or social skills.
Kaczynski's views on technology were obviously extreme,
Yeah,
but they do raise some interesting questions, don't they?
you do.
Are we becoming too reliant on technology? Are we losing sight of those essential human connections in our pursuit of progress and efficiency?
He's certainly tapped into a vein of anxiety that many people feel even today.
Right.
And while most of us would reject his violent solutions,
Yeah, of course.
it's worth considering the unintended consequences of our choices, both as individuals and as a society.
Right.
How do we ensure that technology serves humanity rather than enslaving it?
Yeah.
How do we strike a balance between progress and preserving those core values that make us human?
There's a lot to think about, isn't it?
It is.
But I think that's the point of these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not about finding easy answers or passing judgment.
Right.
It's about engaging in thoughtful, nuanced conversations about the complex issues we face as a society.
Exactly. Kaczynski's story isn't just about one troubled individual.
Right.
It's a reflection of our collective humanity,
Yeah.
with all its complexities and contradictions.
Right.
And understanding that recognizing both our potential for brilliance and our capacity for darkness
Right.
is essential if we want to build a better, more compassionate future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to continue exploring these questions on your own.
Okay.
Think about the role of technology in your life, about the ways you connect with others, and about the values that shape your worldview.
Right.
Because ultimately, creating a better future is a collective effort,
Yeah.
one that requires us to be mindful, compassionate, and engaged with the world around us.